All right, back today with another episode of D2D Success Stories. Here today with my good friend and my business partner, Kyle Deever. What's up, man?
Hey, glad to be on it. This is actually our second attempt. We shot your first ever episode, and it was actually pretty nostalgic for me because I used to have a podcast called Levi and Kyle, thinking about restarting it. And my first ever episode was with your dad.
With my dad. Yeah. Also unusable.
Yeah,
Right?
completely.
A couple unusable first try episodes.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, failed to secure an outside guest,
proper guest
for this week, so we're just gonna catch up on some stuff, talk about the pod, BS a little bit about door to door and what's going on.
How many episodes is it now?
13 or something.
14 episodes. That's I think I ended up with 30 some. How's it been for you? What have you learned so far? Have you avoided burnout? And because podcasts can get, especially with the wrong guests, can get boring as hell sometimes.
Luckily this is a very easy premise to shoot on, because sometimes people ask me, how do you think of questions to ask people? I'm like, well, we're going chronologically through their story, so a lot of the time the question is, and then what happened?
Yeah.
But shoot, man, lots of really cool guests. We've had most of the senior OGs from Aptiv by now. Had some really top guys from the Grit. Had Kenny Cox, who's really the senior OG at Vivint now. Bunch of Golden Door winners, solar guys, et cetera, et cetera. So
I've always been a big Cox fan myself, but what of all the guests you've had, who were you surprised? Like, oh, I really like that guy afterwards.
I'm an easy sell. I've liked all my guests so far.
Well, I'm saying preconceived notions, and then afterwards you're like, oh, actually, that was a really cool guy.
Yeah.
And not even negative. You just didn't think he would be that fun or that cool or something like that.
Maybe my last one, man. Tosh McIntosh. He's he's like the mega OG at Aptiv. So maybe comes off very corporate-y and just managerial all the time. But when he gets into his story, you're like, this is fun. This is exciting. You know what I mean? You get the ancient history 2008, 2005 come up story.
That's something
whatever.
you talk about a lot, dude. Is like, and I think it's worth talking about. Is like, because we are a 4-year-old company now. We just hit 4 years, and you talk about the history of Aptiv, and we know the history of Aptiv. It's only like 2014, but in reality, it goes back 10 years even from there.
Yeah.
And
the
just
core group.
The perspective of us being 4 years in and where we're at, and this wouldn't even register with Aptiv as the known history of things,
Yeah, or Kenny's door-to-door history. It's like Vivint back to 05, and then before that, vacuums. Homie was selling vacuums.
You know what? I heard Kenny Cox then. He lives up in Heber.
Yeah.
He was on that one episode of the other door-to-door podcast.
Yeah.
I did hear a story. He worked with the NFL.
I
tell that story all the time of him working, like the guy at the NFL saying, I ask myself 4 questions every couple of years or something like that.
Yeah. Mega quote. He retold it on mine.
That's cool.
Yeah. So that's like a main teaching for him.
That's an interesting thought, dude, of like everything's been a springboard. Performance Windows is kind of getting big, and I think we're just now starting to understand the magnitude of what Performance Windows is and the partnerships we're talking about. But he makes it all the way to the NFL doing things because of a door-to-door company. It's always been funny to me how people have always discounted door-to-door companies, like, oh, yeah, that's a nice way to make money before you start your career kind of thing.
Yeah.
When in reality, it's a very strong business.
Well, that's one of the reasons I like bringing on guys who've built a long career. And they don't all have to be old timers, but I do like bringing on old timers as well, because it's the guys like Kenny, like Tosh, who a lot of the people they started with in 07 have moved on, and will fondly tell the kid who knocks their door, oh, I used to do what you do. That was a great way to get me through college.
Yeah.
That's like their peers, whereas they're still here like, yeah, I'm still doing this, man.
Yeah.
And they're too humble to say it, but they make way more money than the guy who dipped out.
Well, we were just talking about the other day is like Jake Richards, who's our guy down in Phoenix, our market owner. He tells Matt, who's like one of our senior sales guys, well, I just got to wait until you quit so that I can take your place. And Matt's like, well, I'm never going. And it's funny that durability is rare and it's very rewarding in this business. I mean, if you stick around for 5-6 years, you are an old timer.
Yeah. It's like I remember when I was graduating high school, going off to play college football. My coach's advice to me is he just said, show up, keep going to practice, keep going to weights, stay on campus for a few years. When you show up, you'll think that you'll never play. And then by your third year, all of a sudden you'll be a starter. And it's kind of the same thing, man. It's just like, hang around, people quit, you move up.
Is this the longest job you've ever had?
Yes.
This is the longest job I've ever had.
Yeah.
Previously was Joanne Fabric and Craft. But it's just it's flown by and it hasn't. We were just talking recently. I think we are in a very lucky position where we've now got the support staff and management that you and I are able to always stay on the cutting edge. I mean, that Who Moved My Cheese is something that I reference all the time, is that we get the ability to kind of stay on the swivel.
I think door-to-door, running your company is this way too, in my opinion. But door-to-door is one of those things where people talk about getting out, but I think the real flex is still being here. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I heard a guy talk one time about running your company. He was saying, all these guys talking about exiting their company like it's a big W. The W is still being there 20 years later. People get out because they had to. That's the hidden truth, is like your tech company was unprofitable, so you IPO'd so that you could leave, or you sold because you weren't the guy anymore. Like the flex is actually being like Jeff Bezos, where you're still freaking still there.
There's only one Todd Peterson. You know what I mean? There's only one. There's only a couple of household names where you're like, wow, that guy is the guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And even making different moves, but still being able to be there. I don't know. I mean, we've talked about that a lot, is that if we were to sell the company, what would we even do? Try and do this thing again? I'm too good at this one specific thing that being out of it doesn't make sense to me,
Well, and I think that's when you kind of find the most power in your career, is when you start to identify with it on like a personal brand level. It's like, no, this is what I do. This is what I'm good at. And you start to identify with it on a pride level, proud of what I do, proud to be a door-to-door salesman, not trying to leave, proud to still be here. It's like, what's the little quote they say? Beware an old man in a profession where the men usually die young.
Yeah.
Door-to-door salesmen don't die, but we quit. I think still being in the game in your 30s or especially 40s, it's a hell of a flex.
Yeah, well, and it's morphing, Obviously, you and I don't still. I mean, I was actually knocking doors this morning, working with somebody. But vast majority of our time is not spent knocking on doors. But having having done it for so long and being able to step right back into it, such an intricate knowledge of how to work with a knocker, how to make somebody from nothing into something, to transfer away from that. That's why I've always had this hardest time. Everybody always says you don't make your best salesmen into managers. But fact is, if you don't make them have some kind of progress, then they're not going to stick around.
Yeah. Well, and it's, that kind of ties into like staying in the game too. It's like, the classic, like your dad's an accountant that doesn't want you to go sell. His line is, oh, well, what are you going to do? Be 40 years old, still going to Kentucky to sell pest control? It's like, okay, so don't recruit a giant region and be the guy who teaches people to sell. You're still good. You can still go do it. You still go show them on occasion. But, yeah, totally, Dad. You're right. I'm not going to do that when I'm 40.
Well, life's this big span of individual decisions that all have their own butterfly effect. I mean, at any given point in your life or in my life, I mean, we could have not had things crack and go this way. But I think I don't know. It's tough to say, but when we came into door knocking together, we were doing windows, and I think management and ownership is important. We had a boss that I think we both really respect and look up to a lot. And regardless of any differences, I had looked at him for a lot of guidance and things, and I think having the opportunity to be that for other people, being able to be respected for my knowledge of something that I've been doing for a very long time is important to me. I hold it important to me, and I know you yourself. We were just talking the other day about your ability to be able to speak on something. How many people are there experts at things in the world? And we are experts at this thing because we've been doing it for so long, and it's just reps. We've seen everything,
Totally.
Imagine trying to give that up.
Yeah, I mean, for instance, me and you. I mean, sure, what I'm about to say, I'm refining it very narrowly, but at door-to-door window sales, we are amongst the foremost experts ever. I would say you're probably the greatest ever at this. I think I'm in the top 5.
Well, clarify that, because there's definitely things apart. Which part? Because there's things that you are the greatest ever at in terms of this company.
Yeah, I'm the greatest at the ops of door-to-door window sales. The
ops and structure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so again, sure, I refined that to be pretty narrow, but nonetheless, it's cool to be the goats at a thing, no matter what it is.
Do you ever struggle with, you've always been more self-assured in some aspects than me, where, we do well, and I'll just think to myself that everybody's doing well. I'll walk around, and it's part of the Utah influencer culture where I'll be like, oh, everybody's doing well, and then you take a step back and realize, oh, when you really break down our business to people are like, holy hell, that's unbelievable. At what point did you realize that we had something different, or that there is something to be different had in door-to-door sales? Because, we're not the only special ones. I mean, we are special. Mm-hmm. But in talking to other door-to-door companies and other door-to-door guys, what's the difference between a special company and a run-of-the-mill?
Man, I think once you know what it looks like, you can tell when you see it, but then there's other people who you see right through it, like John Taylor, who was one of my guests, 4th or 5th guest. Guy is stone cold, man, just operator to the core, and minimal flash. We're all in door to door, so you put a little flash online for recruiting purposes and all that type of stuff. But that dude just likes his business. Like, at the end of the day, just stone cold operator. You can tell when you talk to him. You know what I mean? Or I'll sing his praises again, like Kenny Cox. So I think kind of the difference is you start to recognize who does it for the love of the game and who's in it for some type of side quest, be it money or clout or something like that. And don't get me wrong, like, if you're good at this job, you make good money, but in a lot of cases, a lot of these guys who been able to interact with for career, and certainly through this podcast, you realize it's like a lot of these dudes are the type of guys who don't care about material things, probably don't even know what to do with all the money they make. It's just like zero material desires. They're like, no, actually, I just kind of like love what I do, and sure, measure how much value I'm providing by the money I can make at times. It's a little bit of a scorecard, but yeah, man, it's just you can tell real operators and real hustlers when you meet them, I think.
I think there's this aspect inside. My wife gets upset with me. Our first place we ever had, You were there at Sunridge down in St. George over by the college.
Yep.
And then we moved over to Delaney, which was that nice new build and everything. And then moved into houses and houses. And at every stage of the game for me, I've never been satisfied or happy. You know, I'm like, even still now I got kind of a nice house. I'm like, it's kind of small. I don't like this and that. And my wife's so pissed off at me. She's like, are you ever going to be happy? And I read this book once, and it was talking about CEO A and CEO B. CEO A is worth $10 million. CEO B is worth $100 million. And they ask A, what's he got that you done? He's like, I don't know, but I've got something that he'll never have, which is I've got enough. And they're trying to point out that CEO B will never be happy and satisfied, and so poor him.
Those people suck.
Yeah, but I was like, I'd rather be CEO B who's never got enough. You know?
Let me turn that one on its head. I had enough money when I had 1 million or 100,000. The having enough money wasn't the point, but he hasn't created enough impact for his own gratification for his standards. He hasn't achieved enough.
Well, the thing is, like, I keep trying to get you to watch The Departed, but it's about this mob boss.
Yeah.
And they asked him, was like, when's it going to be enough? And he's like, to be honest, I had enough money when I took Timmy's lunch money in 4th grade. It's never been about the money. It's been about the progress and you know, in that case, the power. But that's how it's always been for me, is like, every time you crest a hill, there's just another hill. And for some people, that's debilitating. But for me, it's like, oh, good. You know, every time you get to the next group of level of entrepreneurs and business owners, you realize that actually wasn't a hard one to reach, and the next guys are going to be the hard one, the next one. Have you felt that too? You obviously now deal in large deals, and you're dealing with people who do big things. I mean, doesn't it blow your mind that the levels you've gone past? The year we opened Performance Windows, my goal was to make $100,000 for the first time ever. Mm-hmm. Now, that would be devastating.
Yeah. The reason it's not debilitating is because I wasn't looking at it as a finish line. You know, you're trying to get the next one because it's the next one, not because you're going to rest when you get there. If you're trying to get to the next place so that you can rest, and then when you get there you discover there's more mountains, that's debilitating.
Yeah.
Right? But for me the point wasn't rest. The point was the progress, the risk of sounding like some type of hokey live, laugh, love guy, find joy in the journey, right?
Have you ever thought about what is the finish line? I mean, there's going to come a day when we're 60-something years old.
When my heirs and the younger people around me forcefully put me out to pasture.
Yeah, vote you off the board.
Yeah.
Hostile takeover.
Yeah. I'll get ousted like Logan Roy.
I was just this last weekend, I was with Donald Trump Jr. Flex. And and he was talking, and he was saying, he was like, I hate when people publicly say that I should run for office because there's only one king and he'll kill me if he thinks I'm going for it. He's talking about his dad.
Got to respect the OG, man. When they put him in the ground, then Junior can go do his stuff. Yeah. I think I would. I would be happy for my son to oust me. If my son ousted me, I'd tip the cap and I'd say, you deserve it.
You don't think
well played?
You don't think you're going to put your kid, because you got a bachelor's degree, but you never got your advanced degrees, right?
Right.
I didn't even get a bachelor's. I don't know. Maybe I take the wrong lessons from Yellowstone, but I kind of want to put all my kids into like advanced schooling now because we'll have the businesses and now they can be the operators of things. You don't have that thought? Because I had to be a sales guy. I couldn't do the school thing, but they'll have the opportunity. You don't ever think that for the next level?
Oh, the world always changes. I don't want to draw conclusions too soon. The last 10 years, the whole thing has been that going off to school to try to make money became a crowded trade. the ROI got compressed. You couldn't make money doing it anymore. So the move was to be an entrepreneur, salesman, or blue collar. By that same token,
it'll ebb and flow.
Yeah, maybe everybody rushes into those things, and in 20 years, those things are old news, and you need to go to school. So I'll take it as it comes. But, at just kind of a core philosophical level, I want my kids to be doers. I don't want them to be spreadsheet monkeys.
Yeah.
I don't want them to be, it's like in The Wolf of Wall Street when Jordan Belfort's talking to Matthew McConaughey's character in the beginning. He's like, we don't create anything.
Yeah.
It's imaginary. I want them to be in something where they actually create something, not just financial engineers who move money from one place to another, which is maybe this is jaded of me, but that's my concept of what happens when you go to Harvard or something.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, on the same topic, I mean, we're fathers. We've been fathers for a long time. 7, 8. Your boy's older than my girl?
no, Allison's older, but they're both seven,
right around the same.
7 and change.
How has been because when we first started the company, there was no HR department. We said and did some
wild things
to each other, and we've had to progress. What have you had to be a softer man, a harder man? What would you say your timeline of management as the company has gone from a small office of 6 people to now 150 strong? What developments have you had to make to your character as a manager of people?
Man, there's a level of water under the bridge where you're just kind of over it from like an emotional perspective, but that's good. That may sound negative, but that's good. I'm so unemotional about stuff now. It's all just it's old news. The freaking wildest thing could happen, and to me it would be old news. So I think if there's a progression, it's, and again, don't take this the wrong way, but it's just kind of becoming numb to the ups and downs.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen enough situations. For me personally, sales is, for lack of a better term, it's a boys' club, and girls fit in that. But by that I mean it's just a fun environment.
Yeah.
Where you can all just kind of BS, and that's on the small local level. It's been a hard transition for me going from that one small office where we were all kind of just dudes, and we roasted each other and did wild stuff, and it was the wild frontier, to now I'll travel around to all the different offices, and I'm only there for 2-3 days, and so I don't have this long-standing friendship relationship with these people where I can roast them or I can get mad at them, because you don't have that built, and that's been tough for me because I'm big on the hard love, but that's got to be supported by previously shown soft love, and and that's been a tough thing for me as it's gotten bigger and bigger is the less personal.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, man. I went to just last week. Went to Phoenix. We have like freaking 30 people down there. It's huge, and I don't think I'd met more than half of them. It'd been a little too long since I'd been there. Frankly, they're doing fine. This was not a fix something trip. This was just I feel like these people should know me, so I got to go periodically trip. And night before I went, one guy in the chat was like, "Tomorrow the CEO comes," with exclamation points.
You're like, oh, that's me.
I was like, really? I don't take myself that serious. You're treating me like this. So anyway, you show up and there's like this pressure to be the handshaker, to have a big cheesy smile on your face the whole time, and to go say something inspirational or whatever. It's funny. But we're both the same way. Neither of us take ourselves that serious. Matter of fact, I think we both do the same thing, which is that when we're around something fancy or stiff, our subconscious makes us start acting like blue collar and trashy.
Like sweat shorts.
Yeah, it's like we like revolt against any kind of pretentiousness. We low tolerance for it. So yeah, there's
what's funny though is that there's the other side of that coin, is that I don't take myself too seriously and everything. But then when I go to an office and they don't take me seriously, then I get angry.
Yeah.
Like, well, hey, hold on.
Yeah.
I'm the owner.
Do you know who I am? That's true. That's true.
It's been tough, but honestly, it's been interesting watching the show. What would you say? You know, I'm not trying to interview you here, but it's genuinely interesting to me. Is what would you say is a commonality across some of these guys who have been doing it for a long time and who are uber successful with it?
Yeah, I think. I mean, this is kind of obvious, just like by definition, if they've been in it a long time. But longevity, I think these guys all have a immense resilience and a large resistance to anybody trying to tell them to quit or get out of the game. These dudes are all committed to it for the long term, and I think they've all got a lot of vision too. You know, earlier you mentioned the butterfly effect. There's such a butterfly effect on like recruiting one top guy who goes on to be some, you know, like you're some VP and he goes on to be one of your senior managers who runs 1/3 of your org. It's like, well, think about if you hadn't brought in that guy. So and that's one of the reasons that I love, like we were talking about earlier, going back and getting just like the OG origin stories of these guys, because, you know, you have one guy who's a senior OG talking about when he recruited this other senior OG. They're both household names. Everybody knows both of them. It's like, oh, yeah, I found that guy at In-N-Out on a Friday night. He had ketchup on his shirt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just like, wow, this all came from that. And think about if you hadn't said it to him.
Is it interesting to you? I mean, I have this thought all the time where I'll actually feel like a lazy bastard sometimes. Mm-hmm. And then you talk to somebody who actually is lazy, and you realize what your baseline has become. Your baseline for what makes you feel lazy is actually far more obsessed and dedicated than people are with their jobs and things.
Yeah.
What I'm saying, let me ask this question: because we've been doing this thing for four years, and
Yeah.
you know, how has this thing messed you up? Because this thing's messed me up.
Oh, immensely.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what people don't really understand is like, it's like I try to explain to my wife all the time is like, you know, I come home, I just want to veg out or whatever, because you have no idea that every day when I go in there, the livelihoods of hundreds, bordering on thousands of lives go on if I make the right call or not, or if we make the right pivot here, and it's stressful, very stressful.
Yeah, biggest thing is that I can't relax. I have zero ability to relax anymore. Definitely aging poorly. My wife's always roasted me about my thinning, graying hair and my wrinkles. She's been trying to get me to start getting Brotox.
Brotox,
that's
what Dan Thomas calls it.
Yeah. I've been learning all these terms. My crow's feet are really bad.
Honestly, I've always thought you looked good.
Oh, thank you.
Personally.
No diddy.
No diddy.
But yeah, man, it's just the stress of it, the anxiety of it. Recently, I became aware that
I'm dying.
ADHD. Yeah, I'm dying. Recently, I became aware that ADHD people, of which we both are that, we love caffeine, but then the caffeine makes you anxious.
Yeah.
So I don't really know what end of the rope to pull there. I mean, shoot, you don't have to, but I'll just mention this. If anybody could attest to how this job has messed me up, it's you. Well, and I could probably do the same for you.
You know what's really interesting to me is like, I think we're both developed a lot of quirks and I mean, what's funny is that we will go and talk with such authority. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, especially ones with larger orgs, can attest to is we can go and talk to everybody with no problem. But then after that, I think we kind of like become a little bit reclusive. It's hard for me to go and introduce myself to people. It's just because I'm so good and I am the authority in this role, it's then weird for me to walk around and not be an authority and have to just I don't know.
I've entirely changed my preferences with the gym in the sense that I used to love having a gym partner. I'd be headphones out, just having a conversation the whole time. Whereas now I very much prefer to work out by myself, AirPods in. I literally will not say hello to anybody the whole time.
Yeah, and I think honestly, I mean, it's an important point. Is I think people sometimes think that we're daunting or we're mean or whatever it is, but honestly, it's like when you realize that I saw someone once that realize that your parents are going through it for this life for the first time too. Like they're learning everything. People don't understand that it's an immense burden to run a large organization and to worry about people being paid and being able to do it and you know, it's it's hard. You do the best you can. I mean, not to take a vulnerable note there, but it's important to realize that we are now at this moment in the history. It's our first time ever doing this, and when it gets bigger, it'll be our first time ever there and there and there. And I think I've watched some of your podcasts. Mm-hmm. What's interesting to me is a couple of the guys have talked about. Therapy and their feelings and things. And me and you are very much not feelings or therapy dudes. And so I think there was, maybe I should go talk to somebody. But then I'm like, well, things are too good right now. What if I mess up with whatever's going well? Yeah. What if the doctor tweaks something? I'm like, oh, that could be nice.
That's the catch-22 of it all, right? Everybody's like, and I already know the rebuttal to this, but somebody's like, oh, well, you need help. Your life isn't panning out. Or they don't say it that way, but that's the implication. It's like, hey, you need help. It's like, well, how do you figure? Like, what
metrics?
What metrics would tell you that something's going wrong? It looks to me like everything's going right. Well, they're like, well, maybe you'd just be happier. And
maybe.
Well,
maybe.
Yeah, maybe not. But yeah, it's like, I don't know, that they're going to maybe in their quote unquote fix, they make me not the guy who crushes it.
What I'll say, and I know we're getting closer, but what I'll say, and not to what's an appropriate way to say this? I know this is a Christian chat. Not to praise you too much openly here, but what I'll say is that what's allowed me to stay in this thing is through all the bumps and the worries and all the different things is knowing that I've never watched somebody be so engaged in something that I know that if I were to walk away, it would be me quitting before you do in a sense, and it'd be you've talked about that a lot. Is about being on the battlefield with people and why that's important to you. And a lot of our senior guys have been through the bumps and bruises for us. It's fun to watch somebody lead a company and be shoulder to shoulder with. What I guess my last question to you would be is, what's it like having some of those guys like Matt and Clay and guys who've been around for a long time? What's that mean to you that they're in it for the long haul?
It's just respect and honor, man. It's respect and honor. I'll kind of back into this answer. When you get a little bit of a higher profile as a business guy and you start to do like a lot of networking and you have a bunch of acquaintances, right? It's kind of hard to sort out are we friends because we're friends, or is this a business acquaintanceship? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm saying is to me, the truest form of friendship that's left, frankly, is shared experiences, dudes who you feel like you've gone off to battle with. And to me, that's the kind of the highest trust you can have in this game we're all in, is just simply having done it with a guy for a while. So yeah, man, those guys who've been with us for a while, it's all just respect, man. They have my full respect.
Love it.
Cool, man. Well, if our listeners want to catch up with you, where can they find you?
best place to find me is Instagram, real Kyle Deever. You'll always get a response from me there. Hit me up.
Cool. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of D2D Success Stories. Check us out on all the major platforms, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, et cetera, et cetera.